About 15 years ago, I was a 19-year-old kid stuck in my small hometown city and unfortunately was heavily addicted to gambling. Now, at the time, I had no drive, no ambition, no desire really to work hard and get anywhere in my 20s. But I can tell you, in my 20s, early 20s, and mid 20s, I had a ton of life lessons that were learned that helped me accomplish becoming a millionaire in my late 20s. What's up, guys? My name is McKeown. I'm a licensed real estate agent and investor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, as well as Orlando, Florida. The past 6 years of my life, I've spent acquiring rental properties as well as building my real estate portfolio to the tune of over $5 million and selling well over $125 million in real estate. Now, what this has allowed me to do is transition from a high school teacher with a master's degree in education to pursuing real estate full-time and being able to travel across the country, network with other great agents in other markets, and continue to build not only my real estate portfolio, but also my real estate business. But sitting here filming this at the age of 33, almost 34 years old now, I certainly can look back at my 20s and realize a lot of what I did had a huge impact into getting me to where I am today. So let's jump into the first one, and the reason I'm starting with this was probably because it was the easiest of the five for me. Now, however, though, when we talk about other people, for the majority, I would say this is probably going to be the most difficult, and that's sacrifice. Now, when we talk about sacrifice, at the age of 26, having just finished graduate school, getting my master's in education, I had a relationship that ended. Now, at the time, I didn't understand what codependency was, but I can tell you, I was in the thick of it for sure. All I did was focus on my relationship. So when you remove that relationship from my life at the time, I no longer had what I felt like was much to give. I really didn't have a ton of things during my days to occupy myself with, whether or not just to keep me busy or to build myself a future that I would be happy with down the road. So what am I referring to when I mention sacrifice? Well, there's a lot of different things that you can certainly sacrifice, and I'll give you guys an example about an email just sent out this past week. Now, it was a veteran reaching out wanting to utilize his VA loan, but he didn't really want to live in the property. Well, first and foremost, I told him that was mortgage fraud. And the last thing you want to do in this case is go to jail after purchasing your very first property. So I laid it down just honestly for him. At the end of the day, he's going to have to sacrifice and live in a multifamily or live in a single family and rent out the rooms in order to purchase a house and not technically be doing it illegally with his VA loan. Now, if we're talking about my personal situation and how I was able to sacrifice after the ending of that relationship, what I can tell you is I totally dove into what was my intention at the time, and that was real estate. Now, I was still a high school teacher, and I was still a wrestling coach. You can even ask a lot of my former wrestlers. That entire year, I spent as much time as possible reading as many books as I could, as well as contacting and just networking with as many potential clients for my future. Now, to be quite frank with you guys, I was never someone that really struggled to say no. I always had it pretty easy in terms of people reaching out to me and asking if I wanted to go out. It just wasn't my thing. So instead of staying up late on weekends, I'd be getting to bed at a decent time, getting up the next morning early as possible, going to the gym, bettering myself, and then getting to work on my side hustle. Also, when it comes to sacrifice in terms of building your wealth and becoming a millionaire in your 20s, may sound cliche, but you need to watch your spending. Now, one that you've heard over and over again, and unfortunately, it's not something that I can relate to because I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, but it's those individuals that are going to Starbucks on a daily basis, spending $5 to $8 on a drink, when you could easily make something that would be serviceable at your house for less than $1. Now, if you do the quick math, and me being a math major and a much more analytical individual, spending was not an issue for me. I was always more frugal. But you've got to sacrifice a little bit, and that's just one way to start, whether it's going to bed early and getting up early and getting to the gym and just being active and start maybe improving your overall health, or maybe it's giving up those late night outs with your friends, and instead of getting drunk until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and sleeping in until about 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you can actually get to bed and maybe read a book on your way to bed that's a self-improvement book, or maybe a book that has decent content in terms of what you're trying to pursue. And then the next morning, you're able to wake up early, get yourself moving, and essentially almost work an entire day more than that individual that would have been out till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and sleeping in until the afternoon. Now, piggybacking off of sacrifice, what I can tell you is becoming a millionaire in your 20s is certainly not going to come easy. One of the most difficult things that we struggle with on a daily basis is the utilization of social media, but being intentional with social media, and rather than just being a direct consumer, you actually turn yourself into a creator. Yes, you heard me right. A content creator, not a content consumer. Now, what I can tell you is I'm intentional on both of these facets. Now, I do my best to create as much social content as possible. Now, the downside is, especially for instance, such as TikTok, you do have to consume a little bit of the content in order to know what's trending, in order to know what's really applicable in your niche, and really to give you the opportunity to put out content that the most amount of people are going to see. Now, dating myself a little bit here, going all the way back to maybe when I was 14 or 15, when MySpace first rolled out, that was really unveiling the beginning of the social media era. Then obviously, as we know, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and now TikTok, all of these new social media platforms have given business owners an opportunity to build their business really from the comfort of their home. Yes, guys, this video that I'm filming here with the set behind me is from my office studio at my own personal house. But the issue that we all struggle with, again, is consuming versus actually creating content. What I can tell you is you need to be intentional on both. You can't truly, at the end of the day, consume no content, but what you can keep yourself from doing is consuming just content religiously to the point where you are not able to create any content. Now, I'll give you one example when it comes to TikTok. I scroll TikTok pretty regularly at the gym. Now, what I'm doing when I'm scrolling TikTok at the gym is actually trying to find a video that I can then turn around and relate it to my niche on TikTok. And if I do feel like it's relevant, I like the video. And then when I go back and want to actually create content, I just search for my liked videos and bam, I already have a ton of content and ideas that I've consumed previously, but now have the intent to create for people to engage with. Now, if you guys actually go to my YouTube channel, and because I've made a ridiculous amount of videos on this YouTube channel, and you go back to my oldest videos, it's actually 2 different vlogs that I filmed myself prior to actually hiring an entire videographer and editor. And I can tell you, I didn't upload another video for an entire year after those first 2 videos because I was so frustrated with being able to have to film myself all the time and then go in and edit. I think my first video that I edited took me almost an entire week to do. So when it comes to creating content, I can totally relate to a lot of folks out there that struggle to get on camera. One of the biggest reasons that I hired a videographer and editor a whole year later was, first of all, I could finally afford it, but also second of all, it would hold me accountable for putting video content out. Now, I know myself, if I were to continue to create content and maybe vlog, it would very seldom actually make it out onto any platform because, again, I just had a million different things I was doing at the time, and my priority was not creating video content. However, when it comes to social media content, it doesn't always have to be video, but I can certainly tell you video is king right now. Now, along with creating content and being a creator, rather than being a consumer, one of the things that you're gonna have to do in your 20s is build your brand. Now, the good thing about social media, creating content, actually making content rather than just being an entire consumer. And I can't tell you guys how many people I know that all they do is consume content and they're too scared to actually create it themselves. Where had they done what I did and actually started creating content about 2.5 years ago, their business would be flourishing right now. And that all comes down to their personal brand. If you don't create an image, if you don't provide experience and knowledge to people out there, you're not going to build an audience. If you don't build an audience, you're really not going to have any personal brand outside of maybe the people that you've helped previously as far as clientele. And what I can tell you from a real estate perspective, and a lot of the clientele that I help on a daily basis buy, sell, or invest in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or in Orlando, majority of those folks aren't really clientele. They're actually people that I meet, create a good bond with, they become actual friends of mine, and those friends purchase a house and continue to use me down the road. Now, what this does is it builds a strong brand for myself, and it builds repeat business to where they're going to continue to use me, but they're also going to send me future business from potentially their family, their friends, their colleagues. Every single person that they refer me, I'm going to be doing the very same thing I did with them, creating that bond, building that relationship with them. And then by building that relationship, I'm going to bring them into my circle and hopefully never have them use another real estate agent outside of myself ever again. Another great thing about building a personal brand is you start to get recognition outside of just that sphere or that circle that you've created. You start building content to where people have been watching your content, but really, as I mentioned earlier, just really been those individuals that consume content. There's nothing wrong with consuming content. Again, it just goes back to being intentional with consuming content. So when I actually help an individual here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that knows my entire life story and knows all about my real estate investing because he's been consistently watching all of my content, that is what we're talking about when building your personal brand. I haven't had to have any significant kind of, conversation with this person. This person knew so much about me just by consuming my content. Now, a lot of these tips and tricks can truly tie together at the end of the day. The next one that I'm going to be mentioning, I mention way too much on this channel, and I feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over when I say it, but it's one of my favorite, and that's leverage. Now, one of the beauties of social media and creating social media content is you can leverage the large audience that you truly, before social media, could never even attempt to do. You maybe had the news, you had the radio, or you had word of mouth. But now you can actually have a 7-second video be seen by millions of people, and that can garnish you extra tens, if not hundreds of thousands of followers just from one short video that you made at the gym. I'll give you an example there because that's exactly what has happened on one of my TikTok videos. I gained a ton of new followers. I gained a ton of new Instagram followers as well, stemming from that TikTok, and it's continued to build my brand just off of one quick TikTok that I made. Now that's the power of leverage, and you need to apply this to whatever your niche is and continue to grow your social media content, because once again, you're going to be having people consume your content, and if your content's good enough, or maybe it provides enough value, you're going to have those individuals follow you and potentially just be a lifelong fan. Now on the flip side, when it comes to leverage, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, I love leveraging other people's money to make me money. Now, about 6 years ago, when I first moved to Dallas, got my real estate license, and I had about 12 months of experience just going to real estate investment meetups, I wanted to start leveraging other people's money as quickly as possible to really build the potential income I could earn. So initially what I wanted to do was actually purchase a car and rent it out on what we now call Turo. A lot of you may be familiar with, and there was plenty of lessons learned on there, but I did make some good money as a high school teacher renting out a Porsche at the time. Then you fast forward a little bit more, and I actually started to build my rental portfolio where I started having tenants now pay my mortgage. It was my qualifications and my income that allowed me to get the mortgage, but I was never even paying the mortgage because my tenants, when they were occupying the units, were actually paying my mortgage. Now I'm really leveraging any and every aspect of my life. I have someone that comes and walks my dogs during the day while I'm filming and I'm busy creating content or out working. I have a videographer and editor that, as you guys heard earlier, I have no desire to film myself and edit, so I hire someone else out that actually does it for a living. I also have continued to build my portfolio to where I have about $30,000 to $40,000 a month in rental income coming in. I still have to pay all of my mortgages and all of my expenses, but that's $30,000 to $40,000 that certainly 6 years ago when I was a high school teacher, making about $3,500 a month from my salary, that I certainly wouldn't have gotten to if I didn't put my head down and got to work. Leverage can be a powerful tool if you use it correctly. What you don't want to do is wind up over leveraging yourself to where it all crumbles and falls. So make sure that when you do start applying leverage in your life, make sure that you're applying it correctly. Now, last but not least, this is probably the easiest for people to get going with, is you're going to have to start a side hustle and work towards putting all the effort and time that you may have to eventually convert that side hustle into a full-time hustle. Now, by this time, you guys are well aware of the fact that my side hustle turned full-time hustle was becoming a real estate agent as well as investing in real estate. But I can also tell you, as I mentioned before, I was renting my cars out on Turo. I was also doing Ubers on the evenings and weekends. I was actually going out of town to large areas where I would be able to Uber for the entire weekend to make as much money as possible. Now, on top of that, I was doing everything I possibly could to try to limit the amount of money that I was spending and increase the amount of money that I was earning. Now, the wider and wider that gap was able to create allowed me to save more money, Now, being able to save as much as I was able to save, I was actually, instead of teaching for about 3 to 5 years, I wound up only teaching in the Dallas area for 12 months that first year. After that first year, I gave notice and moved into real estate full-time, probably a lot sooner than most people would. But because I was sacrificing and because I was building my brand and because I was creating social media content and everything that I've basically mentioned in this entire video, it allowed me to leave in just 1 year, build up my business, and become a millionaire in my 20s. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you have any follow-up questions, leave them down in the comment section below or reach out to me on any kind of social media platform. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help, and stay tuned for the next video.